Hey everybody, it's Bart here, and today I'm going to work on our series of all things. So all things essential exercises. Today it's all things lifting. So we're going to talk about lifting, the do's and don'ts, common lifting procedures, and then I'm going to show you an improvised weight as well as my two free weights. All right, so when we're doing a lifting exercise, we're loading our hamstrings. And so our two H's are the same as we had in squats, our hips and our heels. So we hinge at our hips and our weight goes to our heels, but as soon as we start the lift, the knees unlock and then they don't bend anymore. So you have to break the idea of dropping your hips because the hips stay high here. So unlike the squat where the hips drop, here the hips hinge horizontally. So when I'm lifting, I'm hinging my hips, I have big broad chest, my core is engaged, my weight is in my heels, so that's where my center of gravity is. And you see how I'm dropping my chest into it. So this loads the hamstrings. And the hamstrings are like a bicep. They're spring loaded. So we're adding tension right here. And as soon as we pick up, then the glutes power through. And I pull up using my back muscles and the very last portion of it. So it would be your traps, it would be some of your lats, and then accessory muscles would be, of course, as you're lifting, biceps, delts, and a little bit of the pec minor. So if I'm picking up an improvised weight, so a lot of you are receiving Amazon packages, myself included, I don't want to squat down to pick up that package because our system is our body is a system of levers and pulleys. And so there's this thing called mechanical advantage, and we want to use it to our favor. Right here, when my hips are low, my mechanical advantage goes away. I no longer have a mechanical advantage. My hips need to be up above the knees for that lever and pulley system to work effectively. So when I lift, my hips are up, and then when I squat, my hips come low. Now with the squat, it's a pushing exercise, squatting and pushing. I'm typically lifting a weight up high, up high, up high, sometimes down low, but it's the same rule, the hips slightly above the knee, not below the knee, and then with the lift, the knee unlocks, it's not straight. I have an issue with hyperextending, and so I always remind people it's unlocked. We call that a slight bend of the knees, and so I have that slight bend. I've got my chest forward over the thighs. I'm not trying to think chest up. The chest will drop. I'll be at that nice horizontal angle there when I'm lifting. Now deadlifts, there's a variety of ways to do deadlifts, and I'll have a kettlebell next week so that you can look at how we could do this with a kettlebell. First we have our two free weights, and so I could practice two weights at a time, coming down, coming up, shrugging my shoulders, and I push my hips through, so we call this hip flexion, hip extension. Anterior pelvic tilt, posterior pelvic tilt. So my hips tilt anteriorly on the loading phase and posteriorly as I work my way back up to standing. All right, now I can always do this one at a time, and this works really well when you have a kettlebell where I add torque to the body. The same rules apply, there's just one difference, so that I'm keeping my knees even. When I come down, I'm not taking my hip into it. My hips stay the same. So I'm using trunk, I'm using core, and I'm using lower back muscles. And so I'm working down, up and center, over and down, up and center. Same for the other side. Over and down, up and center, knees stay even, hips hinge, still got weight back in my heels, up and center. Now let's talk about the breath. Now with the breath, I'm going to inhale when I'm about to exert force. I'm about to exert force here. I'm going to exhale when I exert force. So I'm filling up my ribs with air. We call this a Valsalva technique, where I inhale, exhale, and for all intensive purposes, that partial Valsalva technique, that's the move right there. You don't want to hold your breath, and you really want to exhale as you're exerting force, so it gives you a little bit more lift, when you let that air out of your chest, it gives you a little bit more springiness. All right, now that's all things lifting. Later today, I'll have all things twisting. I'll have that kettlebell by Monday. I'm really excited about it. I'm about to go to Target and see if they got re-upped for fitness equipment. I promised to bring back the band, but other than that, thank you for tuning in. I'll be back later today. Have a wonderful day, everybody.